Okay. I think we'll get going, right? We've had a total of 20 registrations, excluding the members. So, yeah. Is that okay? We can get going, and then we can communicate with the other people. So, okay, I'm going to pin Max. Who wants to start? Max or Clement?
I can start. How should we do this? Should we each give a brief introduction to ourselves, and then either we can just talk about the business, or we could show a bit of a presentation?
Well, I think first of all, what's important is that we want the people to get to know you, right? So you can please tell us a little bit about yourself, the journey, what is MVMT, right, and how did you even get to that?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So before you jump on real quick, hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. And as you've seen throughout the marketing material, we're going to be talking today about the MVMT Studio investment opportunity. They are a group, a couple of young men that are very, very determined and very hungry to make a change. Out of 1.5 million that they are currently raising, they've raised 1.2 already. Is that correct, Max?
Yes.
Yes. So the purpose of us being here today is for us to learn more about their journey, how they've gone about to raise this 1.2 and what they are looking for. Of course, they're looking for the 300K, but sometimes we know that on the journey of making your dreams happen, you might need a little bit more support. So what are the other things that you're looking for? And that's the reason we are called here today. Is that okay by you, Max?
Perfect.
Sounds good. All right, Max. So I think the first thing is we want to jump into get to know you, as I said. So please take it away.
Okay, awesome. So everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Max. I'm one of the co-founders. Clem on the call is my other co-founder, or my only co-founder. So as Stephen said, I'll do a brief introduction to myself, a bit of my journey, and then I'll hand it over to Clem, and then we can go into the rest of the points. So I'm from New York City originally. I was born and raised in Manhattan. I was an athlete my whole life. So I grew up playing sports. I did my undergrad degree at Yale, where I played lacrosse. It's a Division I team, so it's quite an intense. They treat it kind of at an almost professional level. I actually studied psychology because I kind of loved understanding, what makes people tick. After I graduated, I moved down to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, where I did a few different things. On one hand, I worked a job in a small investment bank. And on the other hand, I started a little fitness program. It was kind of like a holistic approach to wellness. It looked like a body weight boot camp in the park. And that was kind of at least in my life, it was like a version 1 of Movement Studio, in that the real theory of it was, how do we create balanced, holistic well-being through a mix of movement and functional training and nutrition and community. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, primarily about what makes people tick in relation to exercise, what people are afraid of. It turns out a lot of people are scared of your traditional gym. They're intimidated by traditional forms of exercise. And they're really motivated by being together and by having fun. And also, actually, during that time, after my lacrosse career, I was competing in CrossFit and was on a team that won Latin America and went to the CrossFit Games, which is kind of like the international CrossFit competition. After that, I moved to London for 7 years, where I was working in real estate private equity. And I had during that period, I had a 1-year sabbatical. I did an MBA at INSEAD between France and Singapore. And I moved to Lisbon about 4 years ago. And when I moved here, I met Clem. And I had been, I should mention, after the CrossFit competition, I got shoulder surgery. So my body had started to kind of break down. And then over the 7 years I was in London, I continued to do functional training, and my body was really kind of hurting. And Clem and I started training together, and we started experimenting with movement practices. So we tried animal flow, which is like it almost looks like yoga, but done really quickly. It's on your hands and your feet and kind of twisting and turning around. We did some dance. We did jujitsu. We did capoeira. We did basically everything that we could find. And we discovered a few insights, and specifically I felt a few insights. One was, even in spite of the lacrosse career and the CrossFit career, which were both kind of, let's call it elite or semi-elite athletic pursuits, this was the best I ever felt. And the insight really was that balance is kind of the key to long-term physical well-being. It's not just strength or not just flexibility. The second insight is these practices, which we kind of call mindful movement practices, because you're not just going bang, bang, you're really kind of moving in a mindful way, were really helpful to kind of connect the physical and emotional states. In other words, they were really therapeutic from a mental and emotional perspective. And third insight is that it was a pain in the butt to run around the city to multiple different studios to do these things, right? And to go to different places at different times with different cultures. It was super intimidating and really inconvenient. And so really from the moment that we started training together, we kind of had this idea, wouldn't it be great to create a space where all of these practices could be under one roof, where we could explore balance in our bodies by doing all these wonderful practices and create a community around this that kind of spanned modalities. And where in the end we could, stop thinking of them as such separate modalities and start seeing this broader language of movement. So that was the core idea. And that's what then gave birth to the broader concept of Movement Studio, which we'll go into in a second, to explain really what we're trying to create.
Right.
That's the origin. I'll pass it to Clem.
Okay. Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Max. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us tonight. And apologies if you hear noise in the background. I just had a child, and it's the evening, so she's a little bit fussy. So I'm Clem. I was born in France, raised in France. I studied there. I went to law school and marketing. I then left for Brazil, where I lived for about 4 years. Working for Apple. We were setting up their marketing team in São Paulo. I then moved to London, where I lived a couple years, also working for Apple. And at this stage, some things happened in my life that make me a little bit realign what I wanted. And I quit my job, moved to Portugal. That was about 6 years ago. I first started an organic farm. And now I'm working with Max to open the Movement Studio, basically working on projects that have a deep sense of meaning for me. And movement has a deep sense of meaning for me because it changed my life. I was not at a very healthy point in my life when I found movement, back when I arrived in London. And I walked into a boxing gym, and it literally changed everything from my physical to my mental well-being. And so that was a little over 10 years ago now. So in this journey, in this 10 years, I've explored different things. I started with boxing. As I was boxing, I experimented with yoga as a yin and yang. I realized that the practices were complementary. While I was getting very interested in boxing, I realized that actually a very complementary practice to boxing was dancing. And that some Olympic champions boxers were also dancers when they were younger. It prompted my curiosity, but as Max was talking about, there's a lot of friction in between the moment of curiosity and the other steps. I then moved to Jiu-Jitsu. I've been practicing Jiu-Jitsu for the past 7 years. Jiu-Jitsu is also mixed with a lot of different forms of movement practices from its origin in Brazil, with things called ginástica natural. And those were things that I was seeking, but that were hard to find. And Max and myself made an effort to go out of our way and do more, and really experiment with many of these practices. But as he said, it was an effort. it really took an effort from us to go to different places, meet different communities every time. It wouldn't fit in the schedule. And as we were going through this, we were seeing the benefit for ourselves and all the limitation that there was. I was also seeing the amount of curiosity for those practices that there was around us when we were offering people to join us, but always those little friction. So as Max said, this was the genesis of the idea, creating a physical space that would remove those friction and build community around movement. And it evolved from there into the project we're presenting today.
Fantastic, Clement. It sounds to me like you have a personal journey that is gonna lead you to this point.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's. I mean, it had such a powerful impact. That this is definitely something I feel like sharing. I feel like it's part of my journey to share this with other people and build community around things that make us better.
Right, 100%. Yeah. I've got a quick question there, Max. So you spoke about movement. Clement also spoke about movement. I think for us to start cutting through the butter, how would you guys rate the importance of movement in our life? How does that impact our day-to-day life, right? And let's say that, look, I watch all these things on TV, Duty to all of these things, right? And I've also heard about the, somehow the great impact that it has in our lives, but I don't really understand the science behind it. Okay, so how would you put it in the most simplest way possible for me to really understand how important movement is and how does that impact our daily lives?
Sure. I'll start and come fill in if I miss anything or if you want to frame it in a different way. I mean, first of all, so our mission statement, right? The whole mission of our company is we say we want to create long-term physical and mental well-being through our platform. And we think it's really simple, right? Like physical well-being, like I said before, is a function of balance. And mental well-being is a function of a number of things, but I would say one of the major contributors to mental well-being is embodiment, right? Which is basically it's another way to say presence. And so movement is kind of, and let's go back to physical well-being for a second. In reality, there's three things that make you well. It's sleep, nutrition, exercise. The rest is inconsequential compared to those things. So sleep is super important and good food is super important. And then movement is what keeps you moving your whole life. And it's what keeps your body young. And so we define movement as any practice that balances strength, cardio, coordination, mobility, and mindfulness, right? So in some way, some practices are a little bit more cardio and a little bit less strength. Some are a little bit more mobility, some a little more coordination. But the idea is that movement practices are practices that at least integrate some elements of each of those five, let's call it pillars. Okay. And and I mean, movement is everything, right? When you stop using your body, then your body ceases to do the things that you want to do. But if you keep moving, then your body will continue to adapt to those movement patterns for your whole life. And there's an increasing body of science actually to say that. So first of all, for physical well-being, movement is really one of the biggest things you can do to stave off disease, to keep your keep your energy levels high, to build muscle, to keep your hormones in check and in the right direction, for example. But also from the mental perspective, right? Like literally, the number one thing that you can do for your mental health is dancing, right? It's not taking drugs, it's not talking to a therapist, it's not reading a book, it's like going dancing. And that's just from some studies people have done, right? We think that actually things like jiu-jitsu and yoga are sort of equally effective. It's actually worth noting, and something we'll come to later, we're doing a research program with Yale University to study the impact of movement on mental well-being and to further understand the nuances of how this works. And we're super excited about that, both from an intellectual perspective and from a credibility building perspective, because they're as credible a partner as we could get.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we think it's everything. Clem, do you have any other?
Yeah, I mean, you really listed the 3 points that are being pushed out right now around well-being, which is sleep, nutrition, exercise, and I would add a fourth one, which is a sense of belonging, and belonging to a community. There's something that's very interesting. They've made studies with veterans that went in the US that went to war and are suffering from PTSD, and that have been reintegrated into society via jiu-jitsu. They've been bringing them through jiu-jitsu gym back into society so they could find once again the feeling of brotherhood that they had when they were at war, and a tendency that they notice that when people come back to normal society, they feel it's desegregated. They feel that it's a very individualistic world. And one thing that we've noted is that our lives are more and more individual. Like, many people don't go to a workplace anymore. They work digitally. They live abroad. Many people in Portugal live abroad. So where do you build community? Where do you build a physical sense of belonging with other people? Young people don't go to the restaurant as often as before. They don't drink as often as before. And what these studies have been showing us is that one of the best way to build a sense of belonging and a sense of community is actually to sweat together. So we believe that, like, by bringing people in the same room, creating an environment that is designed to foster community around those practices, we will give people a sense of belonging, which is extremely important for your mental health and for your physical well-being.
Yeah.
Awesome. Interesting, guys. Okay, so my next question to you now is, let's dive into the MVMT Studio concept itself. Right.
Let's do it.
So you've been mentioning different type of movement that include dancing, jiu-jitsu, right? So what are going to be the different kind of activities that will be happening in the MVMT Studio itself? What are the kind of different movements that are going to be there that people will be joining?
Sure. So maybe what I'll do is back up for a second, just because the way my mind works, I like to do kind of framework first so I understand where we're going. Again, mission statement: long-term physical and mental well-being. Long-term is the key there. It's only going to work for the long term if you do it for a while. Right. If you do it for a month and stop, it's not going to work. So what makes people stick to a program? And we've studied a number of programs over time. What makes people stick to things it has to be effective. So it has to work, get you in shape, make you feel good. It has to be social, or it doesn't have to be, but data shows that social exercise, people stick to it longer than they do non-social. Right. It should be fun, because we like having fun. It should be varied, because we get bored of stuff that's all the same. And it should be measurable in some way, because we can track and we're motivated by having milestones that we hit and then surpass.
Right.
So the way that we've sort of curated the elements of this program is to create a mix of stuff that we think will be sticky over the long run for our users.
Okay. Right?
Yeah. And that's what we think supports this mission. So that means we have a spectrum of movement classes, which include, for the sake of categorizing them, we have 5 pillars.
Okay.
Certain kinds of yoga, certain kinds of martial arts, which for the moment will just be capoeira and jiu-jitsu, because we think they're really beautiful. They're really movement-y, but they're not striking martial arts. They're much more approachable. There's functional training, so it might look a little bit more like HIIT classes, but more with a little more flow. You might use kettlebells or dumbbells or kind of more body weight training. There's dance, which we think is really exciting and really deserves a spot. And then there's this thing called movement culture, or what other people call quadrupedal movement training. And this is, in our view, this is kind of, it might seem a little bit new age because it's just gaining popularity now. It's actually been around for a very long time. And this is stuff like, maybe you guys have heard of it, animal flow or primal moves. There's an old practice called gymnastica natural. It's a lot of stuff where you're on your hands and feet and twisting and turning around in lots of different ways. So one thing to really note from one objective, or excuse me, objection, or point that we run up against a lot is, hey, look, I'd be nervous if you guys were just building a project all based around this movement stuff, because people don't get it and they're unfamiliar with it.
Right.
And we totally agree. And our experience has been that people are slower to uptake on things that they're super unfamiliar with. So
that's true.
A lot of what we, at least initially, the way that we'll frame our schedule is mostly in line with stuff that people are familiar with, like training and yoga and some dance and jujitsu, where people already do these practices and they have existing communities and it's not so scary. We'll have a part of our schedule dedicated to the movement culture stuff, and this stuff that is actually an extension of the stuff they were doing before. And in our minds, we think it's really exciting, but we want to bring them in slowly. I just want to note, I don't think we're crazy. We're not just going to go 100% to this thing that's new to everyone. We're going to do mostly what people are already familiar with, and bring people along slowly on the journey.
Right. Okay.
And then what I would say, just to round out the sort of earlier thing, is the reason we think about curating this whole thing to make it sticky is we combine the movement with sauna and cold plunge recovery practices. We combine that with a healthy cafe, so we have the nutrition element.
Okay.
We have a load of kind of social. There's a big social focus, a community focus. Right? We want to build a place where people want to be. We take a whole, what we call the experiential wrapper, and put it around this, which we mean to say, I'm from New York City, Clem is from Paris, right? We both think about stuff we want to do things at a global level. And so when you come to a class of ours, it's not just going to be a class. The music is going to be right. The lighting is going to be right.
Yeah.
Even the smells. We're designing a signature scent for the studio. So experience and hospitality is really core to what we do. And then we're building two things. One is an assessment that allows people to assess and track how you move and where your gaps are, and you can track your progress over time. This is that part of that measurable piece. And the other is a gamification piece, which is basically a gamified system to encourage skill development, where we give you incentives when you develop new skills. And both of those contribute to this measurement thing, where you can track new stuff that you're doing, building new capabilities, and that should keep you really motivated. And so let's call it the whole recipe is this thing around all of those elements together is actually our own unique recipe, built on this kind of movement foundation.
Okay, right. Okay, Rodman, Mr. Rodman, would you say that, so you've just kind of outlined the gamification, the tracking part, so would you say that is the digital part in the project? Because it's a combination of physical movement and digital, right? So is that the digital part?
So there will be a digital element to those aspects of the project.
Okay.
But probably, and especially as it relates to building a successful business, probably the more important digital part is actually creating digital content that we can sell online or through an app, either to consumers or to businesses. There's a lot of examples of this, but this would be, movement classes. It could be 10 minutes, could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour that an individual could do at home, or that we would sell, say, through partnerships into corporate partners like hotels, which could be, for example, in-room movement content that a hotel brand, white label, or that we white label for the brand. And then they're able to offer a sort of a more differentiated wellness offering to their guests, which is a big focus for a lot of hotel chains right now. And that's what we would say is kind of the core of the digital aspect of the business.
Okay.
Which translates directly to scalable revenues.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Definitely. Yeah. I think so. I think the whole movement then is really big. I remember I worked for a company called Zumba. Not Zumba directly, but it's a company that was in mass mart that was selling Zumba product. We're talking almost 10 years ago. And at the time already, there was a big movement already, for all this movement then. So I think I am definitely convinced that what you guys are putting together is something that is very prevalent and much needed right now. And plus, there's a whole movement as well. We're talking about yoga. Even myself, I've done Muay Thai Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu for almost 2.5 years. So I really understand the importance of movement and the impact that it has on your mental well-being. I will even be confident and say that it does not only keep you sane or happy, but it also make you live longer. You get what I'm saying? Yes, yeah. So I think creating a space where all these different type of movement can be practiced, and you have the opportunity to film that and put that on online, or where companies can actually join in as well. I think that's definitely revolutionary. Okay, my next question to you guys is, Max, I believe you have some visuals as to when you have a vision, everything has a picture, right? About how you envision it, how you looking at it. So I have gone through your deck, but some people here have not seen your deck, but you definitely have a visual as to how things are going to look like. What is this just going to be look like the branding. So do you mind perhaps sharing your screen and showing us that before we dive into what the business aspect is?
Sure. Let me just pull this out.
Well, while you're pulling that out, Clement, I just want to ask you real quick. So you just said that you had a baby, right? Lovely. Okay.
I do, yes.
Yeah. So is that going to be a baby MVMT?
Definitely. As soon as she crawls, she'll be on the mat. We're looking to have kids classes.
Okay.
Because we think it's important for kids to move. It's an important service for parents too. And kids and parents classes to teach parents how to play and to move with their kids, because you'd be surprised how many parents are afraid to actually play with their kids.
Interesting. Well, like I said, I am in. Okay, Max, you're here now.
Awesome.
So why don't you go ahead and show us what the vision looks like?
Sure. So what I'll share a little bit is maybe a few different aspects of our visuals. One is we did a campaign shoot that we're really excited about, where we took some of our trainers, practitioners, and we had a concept that was pairing. It says motion sparks emotion, and the idea is to pair something with the full body movement, along with a close up of the face shot. And really have these two go together. And the idea is that the body and the emotion are not separate; they come together. We want to build an aspirational yet accessible brand around bringing these two together. So this is an example of one of the treatments that we've done for one of our practitioners named Vito.
And the way it was shot, Vito actually practiced during a certain amount of time, and the emotion that's captured at the end is the emotion after his practice. So he's been moving. All of our teachers moved for a while, and we were taking pictures and filming them moving, and then we were capturing the emotions after they moved.
Okay.
Yeah. Now let's see what else. So there's a video here. All right, so let's go to a different screen. So I'll show you that in a second. This was a video that we did from the same shoot. These photos in the background are all from the same shoot. So, what we're trying to do is illustrate a little bit of the the creativity that can happen in movement practices and the flow and the excitement. But as I work through the deck, we're going to come to some renders. So these are renders of the space.
Okay.
On the top is a render of the movement space. So inside actually what I can do is back up here. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. When you come in the space, you have a cafe right as you come in. You have a movement area. We call it the movement room. And that's just about 100 square meters. It will have a wooden floor, and then we can roll a tatami mat on and off for practices that require a mat. We'll have a sauna in the back here and cold plunges.
Okay.
We'll have a little functional area to do some strength training. We'll have a shower and a toilet bathroom here. a toilet here, a shower there, and changing rooms. There's a little kind of a mini first floor in the back here where there's a men's and a women's changing room.
Okay.
And so translated back to the photos, basically we see the cafe here, the movement studio here. And granted, these are kind of early renders. So we have, we're going to have some art on the walls and it's evolved since these renders, but you get an idea for the space.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so how big is the space, Clement and Max? The plan you just showed us, the cartography, but how big is the entire space?
So it's about 250 square meters total.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. 100 of that or so is for the actual movement studio, the studio space, and the other 150 is the cafe, the sauna, cold plunge, the bathrooms, the corridors, and the changing rooms. And then actually we also have 4 parking spots in the basement.
Okay. All right. Okay. Amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's all looking very good to me. So, I mean, you've already raised 1.2 million out of 1.5 million to execute the project, and that's, by the way, kudos to you. I mean, you've had some vote of confidence of some very how do I say, trustworthy investors, I would say, already within the ecosystem. And that's Max and Clement. I think it's great. It's great work to actually have key people to align behind your vision, to believe in the movement concept, and to really want to create this space where it's no longer about me, but it's actually about people coming together to move together, right? To live longer together, to have some great time together. So that's really beautiful. Now, Max, how about we dive into Max or Clement? Okay, whoever wants to take the word there. How about we dive into the actual figures? Okay, let's talk about the opportunity here, because look, I am sold. I believe that what you're up to is great. The space looks like fantastic space. You two are from very far, very smart people. You've had time to think about this, plan it out very well. And like I said, you've already secured almost 90% of the investment already, right? So what other opportunities are there? With the 300K that are left right now, with the people that are on the call right now, how should they look at it, and what's going to be the opportunity there, for them to actually own a piece of what you are doing right now? And need I say it's very important that I need to add this, guys, that I lived in Bali for 1 year. There's this kind of similar space in Bali, where they have all different kind of movement space. And let me tell you something, these folks make more than $5 million per year. Okay, they have people from all over the world that come, and that international community is right here, right now in Lisbon, in Portugal. Okay, so that's why I really believe in what Max and Clement are putting together. So the opportunity there, look, I've seen the deck myself, so I don't want to talk too much. I want to give that to Max and Clement. How about you show us what the opportunity really looks like, please?
Sure. So here I'll come back to the presentation.
Okay.
So essentially, what we have, I'll break it down in building blocks. So first, it's the first studio in Lisbon, and this is kind of the platform. This is the foundation of everything that we'll build. We'll build brand credibility. We'll build a name. We'll build the first set of revenues, and this is the thing that we can copy paste. So this first studio, we think, should generate, when it stabilizes, between 1.3 and 1.4 million euros of revenue per year, and should be running just above a 35% EBITDA margin. And so that income is driven mostly by people coming through the space, either drop-ins or members. Will allow people to come on membership or class packages, either 1, 3, 6, or 12. And then you can add on a visit to the recovery room, the sauna and the cold plunge. I should say, if you're on a membership, then you have unlimited access to everything. And then in addition to those revenue streams, we have consultations, we have the cafe. And I should note that the cafe we're doing actually through a partnership with a smoothie bar here called Aura Wellness Bar. And to be honest, we're really excited about that because that's a different business. It's got a load of complications. We struck a really good deal with them, and we like them a lot, and allows us to focus on what we do best. We will host seminars and events, and then we'll sell merchandise. The boutique fitness studio is a really proven model. We think is really, it's great for a number of reasons. You can build community. It works. It's got strong EBITDA margins, and it's very, I don't think this is a word, but let's say copy pastable, right? Once you get the formula, you can improve it, find new locations, and paste it again. So that's the foundation.
Okay.
And then the way that we think about the growth is we have really 3 opportunities. One is, okay, we know this physical thing works, so let's do lots more of those. We can either own or co-own other studios. We can do a franchise model, or we could ultimately do like a management model, kind of like a hotel management agreement, but applied to studios in, say, office buildings or hotels. The second is this digital project, which we discussed. So we have the trainers, we have the space, we have an iPhone, we can film stuff. It's all right there. And then we sell it online through apps, through partnerships, either to users or to corporate partners, business partners like hotels or potentially office buildings. And then the third route of growth is what we call kind of the affiliate marketing platform, where what we'd like to do eventually is to create, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like small luxury hotels of the world or other kind of branded affiliate platforms. But this would be a badge of quality for studios and practitioners around the world. This is also digital and quite scalable, where we would create an affiliate network, market those people. It would include royalty fees and commissions on bookings. And that's, it's a different way to kind of spread the brand and the credibility, but we think it's actually really exciting. So when we put all those opportunities together, we see an opportunity that reaches 250 million plus in value. Again, trying to be reasonable. We don't know exactly how the next 7 years will go. We don't know exactly which one of these routes to growth will be the one that, we really end up focusing on. Will we do all 3? We hope so. Is it possible that actually one is really working and we want to focus on that? That's also possible. I think the point is, trying to view this as reasonable but excited entrepreneurs is, we think the space is right, we think the time is right, and we think the product is great. We think there's a number of routes to growth, and we'll have to learn as we go. But what we're confident about is like the market size is there, the liquidity is there, and there's a lot of really good ways that we could build the company.
Okay, right. Thank you for that, Max and Clement. Max, I've got some really sharp questions for you, right?
Sure.
Okay, first one is, can you give us a very clear point? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How are you making the money? How are you generating revenue for MVMT?
Yeah. So how we make money is a little bit of what I outlined there. So it's memberships,
okay,
class packs, which is individual classes or packs of 3, 6, or 12.
Okay.
Access to the recovery room, which is sold separately unless you're a member. Food and beverage, merchandise, events and seminars, and consultations.
Okay.
And then in a later stage, the digital content, right, where we would license access to an app to a user or to a hotel.
Okay, great. And before I come back to you guys, Marcos is there on the call. I just want to check with Marcos real quick. Marcos, can you hear me? Great. All right. Yeah. Good to have you, by the way, Marcos. Just a quick check. What are your thoughts so far on what Max and Clement have shared? And before we move on to the last part, I'm keen to hear if you have any questions so far.
I might wonder. I listen what the idea is and how you want to position and how you want to develop. But how do you see your competition here in Portugal? Because I frankly think that the concept is surely innovative, and I'm pretty confident, as you are, that the current fitness centers did not really hit the bullseyes with trying to engage and really connecting to the customer. So there's room for improvement there on the product that is being offered, for sure. But I just wonder that you are entering a market which is, there are other players, of course, and there is a huge amount of other experiences in the market. So how do you compare with that? What the learnings did you get from other competitors? Because there are journeys all over across the market, not only in Portugal but in other countries around this issue.
For sure. So I think our a few things drive, let's say, how we position ourselves relative to competitors. You know, one is the positioning of, we want this to be a really quality, high-end, not ultra luxury, but again, aspirational yet accessible place. We want that because, first of all, we think that's a market segment where we can really generate community, and it's also a market segment with higher margins, frankly. So we want to play in a higher margin segment than a lower margin segment. Inspiration that we've taken globally, again, visiting this point of experience. I like to refer to a concept that actually was born in Toronto in Canada and has since expanded to New York City. It's called Othership. Othership offers sauna and ice baths. Like, that's what they offer. But the design is awesome. You know, they have a smell, they give you a stick of incense, the music is really cool, the space is beautiful. They bring in balls of ice and they put it on the sauna, and they have experiences. And so, yeah, what they offer is sauna and ice bath, but they're now 100 million plus as a company and growing, and have like 2 of the hottest locations in New York City because they've created an experience around this otherwise commodified thing, right? That's a little bit of how we think about what we want to do, you know, and that's why I say we don't just offer a movement class. It's a movement class with the light and with the curation and with the sound and with the smells, and, you know, with a really careful attention to hospitality and how people flow through the space. Because in a way, this is what makes the difference. You know, why did Grey Goose become a $1 billion vodka brand? Because it was branded. It made people feel a certain way, right? Vodka's vodka. And we think there's a lot of there's a lot of capacity to create that differentiation through experience in this space. As far as competition in Portugal, you know, we think there's a lot of room to grow because Portugal is really becoming like a wellness hub for the world. There are a few other studios that are opening around now that are offering sauna and cold plunge, and there's even a few that are doing movement practices. We actually think that's great, right? Because for one of our studios to be successful, we don't need to own the market, right? We only need 400 people for the studio to be successful, and then we copy paste and we keep growing. So we think it's actually amazing that there's more awareness of these kinds of practices, because more awareness will drive more people to the space, that will increase familiarity, and we think that will only help the growth of what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Max. Thanks for the detailed answer. Marcos, are you happy with what you hear?
Yes, 2 very quick questions. I missed the more or less the location where you are planning to put it. But probably you said it, but I've missed it. And second thing is how you see your progression in numbers of outlets of sites that you want to evolve, and especially looking in Portugal, if you are sticking to Lisbon or going to other cities. I think I've missed that as well.
Sure, no problem. So I'll just pull up the presentation again quickly. So the studio will be in Santos, or we could say it's in Lisbon, in central Lisbon, on the border of Santos and Lapa.
Okay.
we really like the location because it's basically in the middle of a number of residential neighborhoods. There's Santos, there's Lapa, there's Estrella, there's Alcantara, there's even Campo de Rique is relatively close by, and it's close by walking for a lot of people. So that's one location, and to be honest, one of the reasons that we like it is the ceilings. When we got to them, they're 4.5 meters high. There's tons of light in the space. It really feels quite ample. So that's the first location. As far as expansion goes, we see a second location in Cascais, which we think could be one of the better markets in the world to do what we're doing, because there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of buying power, and there's very little supply of fitness product. I think we would be curious to expand to either Porto or another location in Lisbon, or if Cascais works really well, maybe there's a location in Estoril, right? If there's really a lot of demand in that part of Portugal. And then we see expansion to other markets with a focus on markets where we think there is, again, demand and buying power, and where there's some kind of, let's call it competitive advantage with relation to other international brands. For example, the Middle East, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, it could be Riyadh, where there's a huge amount of governmental support for health and wellness projects. 700,000 people moved to Dubai last year. I mean, that's bigger than Lisbon's population. There's so much buying power and so much demand for wellness stuff. So we think those markets could be really interesting. And then potentially places like Paris, Madrid, Barcelona, London, and the US is definitely on the roadmap, but we want to be careful about how we enter the market.
Okay. Just a small detail on that location in Lisbon is what about parking? How do you see that?
Sure. So we have 4 parking spaces on site, which would accommodate a few people. There is some parking around the neighborhood, but what we see is, part of the reason we like the location is it's walking distance for a lot of neighborhoods. And I should say that we think of the studio as a studio, right? And most of the studios in Lisbon are, functioning really, really well, but don't offer parking, right? We think our comp set are those studios, not the big gyms. And while we don't have a ton of parking on site, and that may rule out some clients who would need to drive to us, what we see is other studios in Lisbon work perfectly well without parking. We have more than they do, and we think, given the location, it should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
It's not only residential, but I'm sure so there's a lot of schools there. So a lot of people actually come to the neighborhood, and mothers come to the neighborhood to drop their sons and daughters at school, and usually are looking for a practice just after that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I have quite a number of friends that also go to these studios, and some of them live closer. They'll either walk, just to warm up before getting to the studio, or get dropped off by their friends. So I think if you have few parkings, I think that should also help you get going. I really believe that it probably wouldn't be like a great deal of limitation. Thank you so much, Marcus, for your very enlightening questions. Bernardo, how are you doing, man?
Hi there. Good afternoon. Thank you all for the pretty clear vision you were able to give us on the project. Just a couple of questions, if I might. And I'm sorry, maybe some of the information is available in other ways. So, but I have a few questions that maybe would be helpful to hear firsthand. So first of all, just have a bit of a better view on how many regular clients, let's call it that, or fixed clients, if you will, out of that 400 that I believe Max mentioned, how much of those do you need basically to get a break even, I would say? And the second question also more or less related to that, which is have a better view on the cost structure to understand, I mean, the people that are going to be working on site, getting the people to move, let's say. How is that like a fixed cost? Is that, someone that comes over just for the sessions? Maybe just again understand a little bit what the cost structure is, how many people you're going to be having in this first location, on what we all expect will be multiple locations in the future.
Right.
Thanks.
Sure. So our break-even number is about 100 members and about 100 people dropping in. Remember, we think that we'll have roughly 50-50 split of income from people in the space of members and drop-ins, and it's about 100. Gosh, Bernardo, I'm sorry, I actually just completely...
No worries. Just a bit on the cost structure. So how much of it is, fixed people or just, subcontracted people that are in when you need them, and just get a better view on that.
For sure. Thank you. I had a total brain fart.
No.
So we've, interestingly, when we initially modeled the business, we thought about having a lot more people kind of fully employed. Now the only fixed kind of people in the business will be Clem and myself, and we have an ops manager. Then we have these two head trainers who are called Cameron and Aaron, who are really next level, fantastic trainers. We got so lucky to meet them. They're moving down to Portugal this week, and should be working with us. They'll be on a small retainer for their, call it, head trainer responsibilities, which include things like refining the schedule, sometimes manning the studio, doing teacher trainings, running workshops, creating digital content, a lot of things like that. And then other than them, everybody else will be paid basically as a contractor. So people giving the classes will be paid per class with a base rate and an incentive. So basically €2 per person over 12 people in the class. So, we want them to bring their communities, of course. And then even, people like the people cleaning the space and everyone else will be paid on a contracting basis. We're trying to keep the infrastructure quite light.
Okay. And the health food area, let's call it that, it's let's say almost a different business in its own, and it's going to be operated by someone you found to operate it so separately from business, let's say.
Exactly. We have a revenue share. We take 22.5% of revenues.
Okay.
They employ the people, they run the space. It's really simple. Yeah.
You just need to guarantee quality, and that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Just going back and just a comment, anecdotal evidence, nothing more than that, but to what Marcus was also mentioning, I mean, I think we've seen in the past in Portugal, kind of not sure if it's similar to other markets or not, but kind of when all the big, gyms showed up and the Holmes Place and stuff like that, and they all showed up quite big again, maybe kind of an approach that's very identical, so not very differentiated. I think we were all expecting that maybe they would do well because, again, the Portuguese needed to be a bit more active. But in the end, for some reason, I mean, shareholder issues or whatever, they end up changing hands. And now what we see, at least where I live, for example, more or less central Lisbon, but I see lots of much smaller places, again, more focused on movement, Pilates, yoga. And again, they start showing up here and there, kind of everywhere, and at least from what I can see, they're all at least surviving, and I see a lot of people coming in and out. So I'm guessing that again, it's kind of a trend, not mass market as you mentioned, maybe lower margin and very undifferentiated and very, in some cases, uninteresting and boring type of activity. Activity is good anyway, but better than nothing. But it is what it is. And now I think we're seeing the trend going towards what you were mentioning. I mean, more movement, more community, people, enjoying more what they do, not just doing it because they need to do it, but trying to have a bit of a laugh or an enjoyment out of it instead of, oh gosh, I worked all day now, I need to go to the gym for like 40 minutes and it's going to be horrible. I think that's a bit of a trend that maybe hopefully will benefit the business.
Totally, we agree. I mean, that goes back to this thing of, if you want it to work for the long term, you have to enjoy it. Otherwise, you won't do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you do it for 1 month. It's great for them because you typically pay for at least 3, 4, or maybe 6 months, and you just end up not going there. So it's good business for them in that sense. Not the long term, but at least in the short term, you get revenues and no service. But again, as you say, I mean, for the long run, you need to like it, or else you're gonna not go there again. So yeah. I mean, thanks for the clarifications. I have a few other questions, but it's easier to speak directly with VSM maybe. Yeah, I mean, very interesting project.
Okay. Yeah, Bernard, we will be able to schedule, further, have the great opportunity for you to jump on one-on-one calls with Max if you want to have, further chat with that. No problem. Max, look, I think you've shared a great deal of info with us thus far. Thank you for that. Like I said, I really believe that what you are putting together, it's great. And like Bernardo said, it's something for the community, right? And I also really love the fact that you're bringing in the gamification, right? Because I think what Bernardo said there that's very important is that when people sign up for a medium term, short or medium term, I think that's where they start to really reap the fruits of their investment. So I think introducing this element of gamification and tracking is what's going to keep people in the game, and that's what's going to make a big difference. Now, on to the last part, Max and Clement. So we've spoken about what the studio is going to be. We've spoken about what the concept is. We've spoken about what makes it unique. We've spoken about what differs it from the competitors. We've spoken about what you've shown us what the space looks like. And you've also spoken about basically what the business model is going to be, where you're going to break even, and so forth. Now, can you tell us exactly what it is that you're looking for? And let's try to keep it as simple as possible. If an investor, somebody invests into MVMT, what are they gonna gain out of it, and over what period of time? And I know you're left with 300K right now, but the goal, of course, is to oversubscribe so you can have extra cash to do all kind of things, right? So, can you please package that for us? What are you looking for, and in exchange of what, please?
Sure. So basically, this is our seed round of funding. We are raising a total of 1.5 million. Again, of that, we've raised 1.2. So we're hoping to round out the remaining 300. We set a 3 million euro pre-money valuation to the round. I should note, so the real estate, we actually acquired the real estate. We own the real estate. We bought it for 1.3 million with a 70% loan. It's a leasing loan from Millennium, which will amortize over 12 years effectively. I could go into the details on a one-on-one call because it's more than I think we want to go into here. But there's today I would say there's 450 to 500,000 of equity in that asset in the company. So the valuation 3 million includes, let's call it the present value of future cash flows plus the asset or the NPV of the asset. So we're selling a third of the company if we raise the full 1.5 million, which I hope that we will. We are offering investors in this round a liquidation preference. So this is why we structured the asset to be owned by the company, so that in a downside scenario, should the business fail, which obviously we don't think it will happen, at least we would liquidate the asset and investors would get first cut on any proceeds from that liquidation, which is why I mentioned the roughly 500,000 in equity value today. Our intention is to grow this company to that 250 million euro plus in let's call it a 7-year timeframe. That's our goal. Where we really like the economic proposition of the investment is is specifically that it's not a tech company. It has a different risk return profile. It's very unlikely it will be a zero, especially given that we own the asset. As long as we can get to profitable, we'll earn cash flows. And let's call it the worst case is you get a yield. If we only do one studio, and that yield might be 10%, right? That's not a terrible outcome for an investment, but that's like stage one of many, many stages. If we do 2 studios, that 10% yield could be a 20% yield. We want to, once we stabilize the operations, we envision doing a sale leaseback on the asset. At that point, we would have amortized more of the equity, and therefore maybe we have 600,000 or 700,000 of equity in the asset, which we could put back into the business, thereby delaying or precluding any future fundraises, and therefore any further dilution. I don't know what will happen, but at least we can free up that equity and use it to fund the business. And our approach is we will reinvest capital, but if we have, let's call it, attractive investment opportunities, and if we don't, then we'll pay dividends. And one benefit the company has is that it's a cash flowing business, and so all along the way, unless we have a really good investment opportunity, we will distribute dividends. And there's one version of the future where we simply just pay a lot of dividends. There's another where we get to an exit in 7 years. We think both are attractive.
Okay, cool. And then do you have a minimum ticket that you're raising?
So we kind of, the way that we framed it is our intended minimum was 50,000, but we've taken and will continue to take 25,000 euro checks from friends and family and people in the Lisbon and the Portugal community, because we think a lot of those folks are our best ambassadors.
Okay.
Just a quick question, sorry, on that. I imagine that there are protection clauses thought out for the minority shareholders in a shareholder agreement. So standard, nothing too special, but okay, just checking.
Completely, yeah. We actually we wrote the shareholders agreement kind of in collaboration, or let's say we finalized it in collaboration with one of our lead investors, who is a 2 times exited entrepreneur and had a full legal team behind him.
Okay, that's good.
And so and to be honest, I've done some angel investing in the past, and every conversation we had, we got to the point where we're like, okay, look, that's fair. We're happy to share that document, but I want to say we feel very confident that it's a fair document.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just thinking about the regular, tag-alongs and so on, so that if for some reason you exit the business, and of course you're the soul and everything of it, and so if for some reason you're leaving, the investors have a say on that or a way of participating on that. So again, as I was saying, nothing fancy. I can imagine that it has been thought out. I was just checking. Okay, thanks again.
Okay, all right. Before we close it up, Clement, right there. Clement, real quick question, right? So, what's your word? What's your word for the community that you are trying to build with MVMT, right? And is there going to be? I mean, you guys don't take me wrong, right? I'm just literally casting the stone here. But will there be also an opportunity for that community or members of those community as well to invest in MVMT at a later date? Just shortly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you mean our members, right?
Yes.
The studio members.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we see it as not only a community within the space, but within the business. And we're currently talking with Max. Would you remind me the name of the?
Yeah, it's a Republic.
With Republic, a crowdfunding platform that would also allow for members and people that want to support the business more directly to be investing in us.
Okay, thank you so much, Clement. Thank you, Max. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've pretty much reached the end now. I think what will follow is we'll be able to connect Max to Bernardo directly, so that the conversation can flow further. Marcos, can we do the same on your side?
Yes. Or eventually I will talk with you first, just to make sure I have the whole package of information before I'll be bothering Max with the same sort of information that they have shared with you.
Great. So I think what I will do is I will send send to everyone after the call, the recording of this meeting that we've had. I'll include the full deck of MVMT and also a calendar link to Max's calendar. Sounds good?
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, so if you don't have any other question, I think I will just thank Max and Clement for the detailed info today. And we'll say goodbye until we see each other very soon.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.